Dave, Melanie's Muses here. Well, I muse about things in the entertainment world that are entertaining to me, and sometimes a few weird and random other videos too. But hopefully whatever I'm musing about, you guys stay along for the ride. Today, I'm back with another Zoom interview, and this time I have awesome author Kristen Painter with me. Hi, Kristen. Thank you for joining me. How are you? I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you.
It's very strange. I mean, you guys, my muses all know I talk about your books all the time, and a lot of them know that I've worked with you for a very long time, but we've never actually spoken in person before, which is...
It's true. We've known each other probably since what year?
It's got to be about 8. I think it popped up. It was 8 years. I want to say 8 or 9 years.
Because it was somewhere in the House of Khmer series.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was actually I don't think it was book 1. It was...
No, it was book 4. Okay. Because I had read, Gladys had sent me the trilogy for the House of Khmer, and I got the trilogy, and she thought it was a set trilogy because the 3 released so close together, and it wasn't.
Okay, right.
And so then I started stalking you, and amazing.
So that must have been, so that was like 2016, 2017?
I don't remember.
Yeah, anyway.
There's been a lot of books since then.
It's been a long time, and we've never actually spoken in person before. But we do talk a lot.
A lot.
So it's not like we haven't ever spoken to each other.
No. I mean, as Greg often says, like you two message all the time. And we message very weird and random things as well. So it's
very true.
A whole lot of fun. So anyway, my muses sent in, and I think some of your fans as well, because there was a few names I didn't recognize, sent in a whole bunch of questions that we will see how many we can get. There's a lot of questions. So let's start with the House of Khmer ones and sort of move through the series. That way we can do the series sort of in order, sort of, kind of.
Yep, that's good with me.
So as we said, that was my introduction to your books. That was the first series that I fell in love with, and they are much darker than a lot of the ones that come out now. So it's a very different vibe. But I have a few questions about them on here. I was quite surprised. See, my muses like dark. I was expecting more Nocturne, Shadow Veil, and although they're on here, there are some very specific House of Khmer questions. So Vicky Storch would like to know, if the House of Khmer was made into a movie, who would you see playing Christabel and Malcolm?
That's one of those questions that I have thought about. I don't think I've ever really come up with an actress for Christabel. I kind of feel she might be like an unknown.
Yeah, I agree, 100%.
You know, so that she could sort of fully embody the role and not necessarily.
And you wouldn't be seeing someone up there going, "Oh, that's so and so playing Christabel."
Yeah. There is an actor that I saw somebody mention one time to play the role of Meow, and I thought, oh, I never really thought about him, but I now he sort of sticks in my head.
Sneaking in there.
And of course, now that you've asked me that, I know he's a British actor. He's got sort of a very sculpted face, dark hair. Oh, it's
the only actor I can think of at the moment is Ben Barnes, and that's because we're watching something with Ben Barnes.
He's an older guy.
No, I got nothing.
And he would be even older now, but it'll come to me. I mean, I might be able to. I want to say his first name might be Rupert, but then again, I don't know if that's. I
suck with names. I can do characters, but the actual actors and whatever that play them, yeah, it's just a no-go.
No, it doesn't look like any of these guys.
So if Kristen remembers, I will put a little note up on the video as to who it was at this point so that people can go and Google them and see who they are.
It's one of those guys that if I said his name or showed you his picture, you'd be like, oh yeah.
Oh yeah, him. Yeah. That's 90% of the people ever, because I'm really bad with faces. I'm really, really bad. And especially if they're not looking the same as they did in another role, it's like, forget it. And Greg's really good at it.
And he'd have to be this guy that could. So, by the way, let's just say there's going to be cat visitors, because there's already.
Yeah.
Cat number 1 has approached.
Oh, which cat number 1? Who do we have?
Oh yeah.
My bet would have been Jet. Oh, it is Jet. Hi, Jet. I knew it would be you.
Jetty.
No, that's okay. My muses will love. Oh, good grief! My muses would love the cat visitors. Now, somebody actually asked. They said, "How many cats do you have?" I think it was Gladys, and I know the answer. We have 12 cats. We have 12 cats, right? You have 12 cats, right?
Well, you might as well say we. If anything ever happens to me, they're all going to you.
Hey, just send my husband to clean the litter boxes because Greg would not be a fan of that.
Yeah, we have 12 cats at the moment. It wasn't really a planned thing. We had 6, and we ended up we had neighbors that moved away and left one of their cats behind. And long story short, we took her in. She turned out to be pregnant. And about half an hour from getting her home from the vet and getting her checked out, she started having the babies in this exact room.
Yeah, I remember that.
And so we doubled our population.
But I think that's also, and my muses love animals. They're all big animal people, and I know they'll completely be on board with that. You're such an awesome animal advocate. Like in real life, in the books, we have lots of awesome animals too. But
we do love our fur babies.
Love the fur babies. Dana says, how many cats have you had through your lifetime? Was there even a way to kind of work that out? I just feel that those numbers would just be not happening.
Yeah, I don't think I could ever really calculate that. I grew up with cats, dogs, fish, and birds. So we've always had a wide variety of animals. And when I was in my very very young days, my childhood, my dad actually built like a feeding trough on our back deck, and so that and they would feed all the like feral cats and stuff in the neighborhood, because there was a barn right above us, so there was a lot of cats up there. And I can remember in the winter, this was in Pennsylvania, and it would be very cold. My mom would actually make a big batch of oatmeal and mix cat food, like the dry cat food, into it so they could have a hot meal.
I love your mom. Your mom's so awesome.
And my parents currently have 2 cats, and my brother and his wife have 4 right now.
4.
We're all cat people.
So Dana says, have you ever been a dog or any other animal person? And I know you like other animals, but I think you're definitely a cat person.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a cat person first and foremost, I think, but I don't know if a lot of people know that I'm also a big fish person. I have 3 fish tanks. There's 2 in my office, and there's 1 in sort of our little library. I don't know it's not really a library. It's like whatever the formal living room was supposed to be, but it's got bookshelves in it. And anyway, that's the big tank. So Jet is about to push all kinds of stuff off the dresser over there. Anyway, so I really do. He's being very naughty. I love my fish. Again, we had fish when I was a kid, and my parents actually had a fish food supply company. They made fish food. So we had a lot of fish, and there's something very relaxing to me. Like if I get stuck on a point in my book, I don't know what happens, or the scene's not going the way I thought it was going to do, I will literally just spin my chair around and sort of stare at the fish for a while. There's something about the ions in water. It sort of like unlocks this whole creativity thing. And right now
if you guys want to like see that actually in action, you can check out 2 books in the Nocturne Falls series. You have The Shifter Romances the Writer, where we first get to hear about fish tanks. And then, of course, The Siren Saves the Billionaire, which just recently came out. We get loads of fish tank stuff in there.
Yeah, that's a lot of that is from personal experience. All my tanks are naturally planted tanks, which is really handy in Florida, because if your power goes out, the fish tank is really self-sustaining, because the live plants within the tank make their own oxygen, and then they use the fish waste. I know this is a lesson you didn't count on. They use the fish waste, as fertilizer it's like this closed ecosystem. So
you say that, but Amazon just sent me a fish tank. The Em and Greg set up, like they're very big into the fish tank, and we only have like a beta fish, because I'm not having all these fish around, because I'm the one that gets stuck dealing with it all, and I'm just not. But Amazon just sent this tank, and it's like a self-enclosed, and it has like this waterfall system, and it is exactly that system that you were just describing. So that's really, really funny to me. And I don't understand it at all, but Greg and Emma they're obsessed with it and making this thing do it. And they have like little plant hammocks for the beta fish. And
oh, that's nice. What's his name? Her name? His?
His name is Tig, after Tig in Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah.
Which is M's bad feminist show, because she's all about feminist apart from she loves Tig. She did have 2 snails called Venus and Chibs, but we actually had issues with the other tank, and we think they got ammonia poisoning. So, and Tig wasn't doing very well, but he's good now, and he's in his new home, and he's happy. But yeah, Tig.
Good.
So there we go. Okay, so that got very off track from the House of Khmer. So let me just check if I have any other. I'm sure I do. I know I saw a couple on there. There was one about. Oh, Ashley wants to know what inspired you to write the House of Khmer. Probably because she came into that after the Nocturne Falls books and things, because it's very different, very, very different.
It is very different, but I also think that if you're a fan of the House of Khmer and the Crescent City books, that I think somebody who's really into those books would probably most easily transition into like Shadow Veil and the First Fangs Club.
Yes.
Because those 2 series tend to be a little darker. They have their lighter moments, but they're much more in that urban fantasy vein, especially First Fangs Club, which is
definitely
really
First Fangs Club.
Yeah, urban fantasy. So what inspired me to write that? Well, when I first started writing and trying to get published and trying to get an agent and all that stuff, I really was writing lighter, funnier, much more in the vein of Nocturne Falls. And I'd even tried my hand at some YA, and I'd gotten really close a couple of times. Like, I mean, on the phone with editors discussing changes, and then ultimately it didn't happen. And I like to think I have a pretty thick skin. Obviously, my skin is much thicker now than it was in those early days.
Right.
You get to a point where you take so much of that, and you start to have those questions like, why am I doing this? Is this ever going to become a thing? Do I need to find a regular job and just move on with my life? And, so I kind of had a moment where I thought, I am just going to write to entertain myself. I'm done trying to meet the requirements for this particular publisher's line or this new imprint that's coming out, whatever. So I started writing this book, and I was actually at an RWA conference at the time. I can't remember exactly where it was, but my roommate was sort of like, she knew that I was in a mood. I was in like a different mood. In fact, I didn't really leave the room a whole lot, which isn't like me. And I was just sort of at my computer, and I was working. And if anybody saw me out, they'd be like, "Are you okay? You don't seem like yourself." And finally, my roommate said to me, she goes, "What are you working on?" She's like, "Let me read some of whatever you're doing." And I go, no. I said, "It's this really dark, twisty vampire book. And it's just for me. It's just to entertain myself and get this whole mood out of my system." And that book was Blood Rights. My roommate read some of it, and she's like, "I don't know what this is, but you should really send this to your agent." And I was like, "No, I don't want to. No, this is not, I had this real reservation about it because it was very sort of different than anything I had written. But I did eventually send it to my agent, and she had the same kind of reaction. She's like, I don't know what this voice is. I don't know where this person came from, but just keep writing this book. And that is the book that ended up getting me my New York contract. And I've always affectionately called that book my Screw You book, because it was really just it was me getting all this,
like angst out there.
Yes. And then the weird thing was I had to keep that up for, 4 more books in another series.
I was going to say, total 5 books in that series, and then 3 spin-off books in the series.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you haven't read that, I'm going to put the link to book 1 in the description for the video when I do it. I will say that is still probably my favorite series. Although First Fangs is really creeping up there for me. It's, I don't know. I just tend to like YA writing, and that's what I'm in love with. But I don't think anyone will ever be Aries in the Sin City short for me.
I knew that you would bring him up. I knew that
I had to bring him up. And I have an excuse. I actually have an excuse, because Susan Harris says, "I was a fan of Sin City back in the day. Have you ever wanted to slip back into that universe?" Now, for those of you that don't know what the Sin City universe is, it's a collection of novellas, and you wrote them with another author who's
I wrote 3, and Amanda Carlson wrote 3, and there is some they're all set in the same universe, you know, and there's
Right.
you might see a character to show up in the other books, but we sort of developed the world together. And yeah, that was a lot. That was, again, just something we wanted to sort of, I don't know, for something new and different to do. And I really did like writing in that world. And I could see maybe at some point going back to it, but there's only so many series a girl can write.
I know, but for whatever reason, Eric, if you guys are going to look this up, then you can read this novella completely on its own. Dead Man's Hand. That, if anybody ever asks me what is my favorite Kristen Painter of all, and I know a lot of people say, oh, I can't pick one. I can pick one. Yeah. Dead Man's Hand with Eric. For whatever reason, Eric just like reached out and grabbed my heart and was like, okay, even though I could never be with him because he would literally kill me just by like saying hello. But, you know, I thought he was amazing. And you guys, Kristen actually sent me an infinity scarf, and it has the print of Dead Man's Hand on it. That's how much I love this book. That is
the entire book on it.
Yeah, that is my book. That would be my book. But yeah, I mean that's a little side venture as well. And I'd say that was that's on the darker side.
I think those books, those novellas have some darker moments to them. Yeah, definitely. They're not the light, funny Nocturne Falls.
No.
Things. No.
And I think anybody who came in, because obviously Nocturne Falls is by far your biggest series. And yeah. I think a lot of people find you via the Nocturne Falls. And I think some of the other stuff is a little bit of, I actually had somebody say that, I think it was in one of the reader groups, they're like, okay, I'm very used to getting my closure in these books. It's like, you go, bloop. Actually, no, it was on the podcast that you did. They'd read the Nocturne Falls, and they were very used to this complete little segment story. And you start with the characters and you know you're going to get this happy ending. And then they read The House of the Rising Sun and were like, what is this? Like, yeah, you get to the end of the book, it's like cliff. And I was laughing hysterically as I listened to that.
I think that's definitely a convention of the individual genres too. In romance, 99.99% of the time, you are going to get that happily ever after. I mean, that's sort of the expected. Not to say that there probably aren't some series out there that don't stretch out a little bit more, but that is, you can pretty much count on that. But when you come to urban fantasy, there aren't those kind of rules. You might get some things tied up in a bow, but there's definitely going to be continuing threads that carry on. I mean, I'm working on book 4 of the First Fangs Club right now. The suck stops here.
I love that.
It's even as a writer, it's so curious to me because I think like, okay, this is going to be resolved in this book, and then sometimes something will happen. And you're like, well, that's new and different. I didn't see that coming, and this takes that in a whole different direction, and maybe it's not going to be resolved. You know, so that's urban fantasy for you. That's what happens.
So that actually brings me nicely to a question that Marcy had. Marcy Robinson asked a question that one of my muses never failed to ask this. It's, are you a plotter or a pantster when it comes to writing?
Yes.
Yeah, I know. I thought, yeah, she's both. She's absolutely both. It's like,
yeah.
Yeah.
I like to say that I generally know how a book is going to start, and I'll know some things that happen along the way. And I usually have an end that I am writing towards, but there is so much stuff that happens or sometimes I'll think, oh, by the middle of the book, this is going to happen. This is exactly what's going on in The Suck Stops Here right now, because the timeline of this book, it's not really going the way I thought it was going to go, which is fine because things are happening.
Because it's working, yeah.
I can't predict. If I plot out or outline a book, generally at that point I lose interest in it and no longer want to write it. So there has to be, I write to see what happens next.
I love it. See, and that works for you. And I know, because there are some things I know where we've been talking and you're like, well, I thought I had this ending worked out, and now based on what's happened, this ending is not going to work out. So now I have to work out how this book is going to end. And you always do. You always manage to figure it out. But sometimes the characters are not always cooperating. And I do love the fact that you have to try and twist it to try and catch me out.
Well, and sometimes those twists and things happen because I like to make the least expected choice. I think it's not only does it make for good reading, but again, it's one of those things that keeps me interested. And I do sometimes write myself into a corner, but I think some of the greatest reading comes out of the working out of those solutions, when you think that there is like, how do you get out of this? And then that solution becomes just really interesting reading.
Yeah, then when it hits you, it's phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Diana Dalton would like to know, do you ever sleep? I said, your friends are ruthless and demand so much since we devour your books so fast. Do you ever just take a vacation and wish you could just not write?
I don't really take a lot of vacations.
No, you don't.
I mean, I would love to, but well, not only that, it's kind of hard to take a vacation with 12 cats, which is not to say that we don't. We have a great pet sitter. We have my mom and dad and my sister-in-law and everybody to help. But no, I don't really take vacations as much as I would like. But when we do, I do a lot of reading. I will say that. That's a huge thing that I do on vacation, is I just read a ton of books. I do sleep, probably not as much as I would like, but yeah, I really, when I work, and I do treat this like a job, I'm usually at my desk, no later than 9 o'clock, usually more like by 8, and I try to be done by 5. So I really do treat it like a job. And when I'm at my desk, I work, and I just, put my head down, my fingers on the keyboard, and get it done.
Yep. And I can 100% vouch for that, because I'm talking to Kristen throughout the day and I know exactly what work is going on. And there is a lot of it, a lot of work. All right. Susan has she has a list on here that says Melanie related questions. And I think this is because I alpha read for Susan, and I talk a lot about books with her, not as a PA as I am with you, but in a different realm. And I think she just wants to know how you deal with me, is I probably the nicest way to put it. So she says, one of her questions is, I spend a lot of time defending certain characters to Melanie, and then she says Eva and Derek, because literally her whole series had to change because I hated these characters so much, with like such passion. I hated them. I still hate them to this day, for the record. Is there any character that you have fought for and Melanie just wasn't having it and you ended up having to change it? I can think of one character that I was just like,
yeah, and I don't know if we're thinking about the same character, but are we thinking about Sebastian's?
Yeah, Sebastian's story.
Yeah. In the early days of the thought process of that book, I was going to get him back together with his estranged wife. And you're like, no.
Absolutely not. I was like, 100% no. You have to find a different way to write this, because just no. I said, I know Sebastian and I know what he would do. And there's just, I was so, and you know what? The book turned out fantastically and the fans all loved it. So yeah, I think that's the only time I've really been adamant about no, like for the ideas or anything. I was just like,
yeah,
no.
I don't think you've ever really, not to my memory, have you ever really said anything about, other than we talked about that one character's name because it was too much of a bad guy giveaway.
Yeah, that's the only name that was ever an issue for me. And you'd already written the book at that point, and I was just like, you're like, how did you figure that out? I was like, well, that's a bad guy name. You gave the bad guy a bad guy name. And so for me, right from page 1, even when he was introduced, he was a bad guy. And it was like, ugh. So
I'm one of those writers that I tend to go with like whatever name pops into my head for a character, then that is their name. And sometimes I think to myself, that's just a placeholder. I will go in and change that later. And then like 3 books
they grow into their name.
Oh crap, I forgot to change that name and now I'm stuck with it. But it is what it is. So
yeah. See, Susan, I veto a lot of Susan's names, but you don't give me names to veto. I mean, the closest you get when we're discussing names is you'll be like, what are your grandparents' names? And go. And then you're like, well, those are useless. I can't use those.
It's true. I will sometimes ask for names. I every once in a while.
I'm very bad at providing them. Let me just put that out there right now. It's not just you, Susan, when you ask me for names and I can't give them. I suck at choosing names. But if you give me a list of names, I can usually pick ones I don't like.
Names are hard because it has to embody the character. It has to, a name tells a story about a person just from the minute you hear it. And so you have to think, okay, well, how do I want that character to be perceived? You know, there's so much that goes into a name. They are
And
hard.
I think especially with supernatural characters, when you're looking at characters that may have lived for a long time, it's like, what era were they born in, and
yes,
what names are around at that time? I mean, you can't just pick a random name that's popular now, and that name might not have existed 200 years ago.
Right. And you absolutely have to, a person, a character's past history absolutely informs, you know, what their name would be, because it does have a lot to do with when they were born. And yeah, you're not going to have a, you know, 3,000-year-old vampire named Bob. I mean, unless he's changed his name, obviously. But yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they're generally not going to introduce themselves as Bob the vampire.
Yeah. There's a book in there somewhere.
I think, yeah, I was just going to say, I was like, just make a note of that for next time. Okay, Diana says, will you revisit Santa's workshop in Nocturne Falls for a Juniper or other worker storyline? For those of you that aren't familiar, Nocturne Falls is the series of books, and it's a complete series. It's 14 right now, but each book is like a complete story in itself, so you can literally pick up any of them and read them, but I highly recommend starting at the beginning, especially as Vampires Mail Order Bride is free, and I will put a link for that in the description to the video. If you haven't read any of them, you really need to get on that, because this series is amazing. But it also has a spin-off series, which are the Jane Frost. Now those are cozy mysteries, but they sort of link together, and although they sort of tie in with Nocturne Falls, you can read them as a set on their own. And if you have Kindle Unlimited, hi, is that Henry?
That's Jack.
Jack. Hey, Jack. Jack's come to say hi. Are you going to be more well-behaved than Jack?
Oh, yes, he's much more chill.
But yeah, the Jane Frost mysteries, they are actually on Kindle Unlimited right now. So if you don't have that, I'll put a link to get Kindle Unlimited. And so you can read those with your Kindle Unlimited membership, or you can just purchase them, you know, either or. And then there's one book in the new one, The Frost and Crow, which is down the line. But I won't go too much into that because that'd be major spoilers if you guys haven't read anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, Juniper, are we going to get back to the question? Are we likely to see a Juniper or other worker storyline?
I mean, anything is possible. I don't like to ever say no, because you never know when a story is going to hit you and you feel like, oh, that's, you know, but I think it's absolutely likely that those characters and that shop will show up again in future Nocturne Falls.
Yeah, and I feel that if you did a Juniper storyline, it would probably end up as a Nocturne Falls book. Like one of those storylines, rather than part of the Jane Frost ones. I mean, the Jane Frost mysteries are sort of encapsulated to themselves, although they fit into the world, and that I feel that this would just end up being a Nocturne Falls.
Yeah, I absolutely think it would be that way too. Yeah.
Just like with Grayson, because Grayson started in Jane Frost and then.
Yep, and then he became a hero in his own right in the Nocturne Falls books. So yeah.
He redeemed himself a little bit in the Nocturne Falls book. We won't talk about that. Oh, he was so whiny for a while. Oh. Took my character just okay. Susan Harris says, do you have issues that Melanie brings up things that are super random that a normal reader probably would never notice and won't let it go? Or is it just her? And her example is, does Paris need a wee? Now, you probably need a little bit of background to where that came from, but Susan Harris did Romeo and Juliet magical reimagining. And one of her characters was a ghost that could become corporeal. And when he was corporeal, he could eat and drink, and then he'd vanish and be non-corporeal again. And I wanted to know if he had to use the bathroom. He's like, what happens to all this food and drink that he's drinking if he then pops off into the other world? Then when he comes back into it, why are you doing that?
That does sound like a you thing.
But I needed to know.
Well, I hope not to be punny, but I hope you got some relief.
I mean, I don't think there are anything. I mean, there's a few things where I think the closest to that would be the magic link in the Frost and Crow book. I was really obsessed with that magic link and why you couldn't sense where she was based on how you'd written it.
There are some things. Every once in a while, I'll notice that you'll pick up on something, and I think it's because of your British background that you'll pick up on something that maybe like I hadn't even thought, or you'll be like, "What is that?" There was something just not too long ago I can't think of what it was now, but there was something that you made a comment about. I don't know.
Was it just something I didn't understand? Because that happens a lot. That's just because.
Yeah, something like that. Or you didn't know it was a common thing or something like that.
Yeah. That happens a lot. But I think the closest thing to the fixating like that, I mean, there is another one, but I can't say it because it's like major spoilers, but I'll message it to you afterwards. And
Okay.
I think you probably know which one it was.
I have a feeling.
Yeah, but I can't say it because that's major spoilers and that's not coming up on here. So yeah, but I think that would be the closest one, was the magical link. I was really obsessing over that for a little bit. And I was like, and then it turned out that wasn't even what you meant at all. It was just that one sentence that you put, you're like, I didn't even mean it like that. As I've gone through the whole book, like.
Well, but that's why I have you read the books too and get your feedback too, because, it's hard for me to read one of my own books objectively because that entire story is in my head. Like I know, you know what I mean? So when you read it for the first time, you're really seeing it with pure reader eyes, and you can kind of tell me, wait, what is that? Or, something didn't quite work, or
or you have something in your head that you know, but you haven't put it on the paper, so we as readers don't know it.
There's so much backstory for each character and stuff that I know about characters and things that happened and that never makes it on the page, because they're just like, I mean, the book could be 300,000 words long, so.
And your readers would love it. I'm sure they would devour each and every word of it.
I think it would be super boring if there was all that backstory. Anyway.
Yeah. So she also would like to know, does it annoy you that Melanie won't just speed read the story? She insists on making notes all the way through it as she reads it.
No, I want the notes.
See, Susan, when you watch this back?
Yeah, I want the notes, because those things tell me like that joke worked or that didn't, or this was, she thought that was clever, or I don't know. Those notes are important to me. They really are. Because
Susan likes the notes, but she would like me to just read the story quickly first and let her know that the basic story is okay. But I can't do that. I have to sort of dissect it as I go along.
You already read a book in like 15 minutes. So what?
It's not that fast.
But you know what my suggestion is to Susan? Have a little patience. You already read the book so fast.
I know.
And to be honest, when I give you a book to read, I am immediately back to whatever I'm working on. So it's not like I'm sitting around waiting. You know what I mean? Like I'm already trying to get.
And I think that Susan does actively sit. She's like waiting for my, nod of approval or whatever to get the thing before she goes on to the next thing. And because this is like, I don't care. Bella's say what she's going to say. You're not going to change it at that point.
She should get a kitten. That would keep her occupied.
I'll tell her. I would say Kristen's suggestion is get a kitten.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to jump over to now. A couple of people were talking about Shadow Meow, and I was laughing when I was reading the questions because I was just like, "Good luck, guys," because she won't even tell me. But for those of you that don't know, Shadow Meow it's like I want to say a slightly darker Nocturne Falls. I think that's probably the best way to describe it. Each book again has a sort of story on its own. You can read them as standalones, although books 1 and 2 have a lot more crossover than say book 3 and book 4. I feel are more on their own.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a town, and instead of it being Halloween every day, this is a town that it's sort of a secret town, and the town has to let you know. It's like a living town. It has to let you know, and usually people there have some kind of curses or related to someone who has a curse, and there's a lot of magic involved. And one of the questions is actually I had two questions about. Vicky says she has a theory on who the tiger is in Shadow Meow, but she said, I don't think you're going to tell me, so I'll ask something else. And somebody else asked about the tiger. Oh, yeah, Chris Nielsen Amateur said, will we find out the identity of the tiger in Shadow Meow? I'm like, I've been trying to figure this out since book 1, and Kristen won't tell me, so I'm pretty sure she's not telling you guys who it is.
I mean, sure, someday you'll find out.
There you go, guys. You heard it here first. Someday we will find out.
You're not going to find out today. Today is not that day.
And I knew that. I knew that was coming. I was just like, that's so funny.
People have a lot of theories. I've seen a lot of theories.
Yeah.
Who or what the tiger is.
And I can almost guarantee that the more it looks like it's going to be this one theory, it will end up not being that, because I know you're writing so well, and or you're just making that to throw me off because I'm so down the other. Yeah, you're not going to give me anything. I know how this works. Vicky says, because she's going to ask about the questions, do you put anything of yourself in the characters?
I think every character has a little bit of me in them. I think I don't know how you would write a book otherwise, because all of my personal experiences and all of my own past history, I mean, they inform every writing decision I make. So I don't know how they couldn't be. That said, there are definitely characters that are much more me.
Mm-hmm.
And there are characters who are not me at all. You know what I mean? But it doesn't mean that there isn't still a little bit of something that rings true for me in that character. I think Belladonna Barone, the heroine of the First Fangs Club book, I relate to her a lot because we are very close in age. And then there's a lot of things about her that have nothing to do with me. I've never been married to a mob guy. I don't have any children, that sort of stuff. But every character has a little bit of me in them. Even Mal, I mean, because I am very cranky and he was definitely cranky. So I love a grumpy hero.
Yes, grumpy heroes. That's what's Gladys says, do you agree with the line of thinking that your PA, so that would be me, has the same moody characteristics as Meow? We know you didn't create him after her, as she wasn't your PA then, but they are so similar. I don't think I'm that similar. I don't see myself in. There are some characters that I do see a lot of me in like the werewolf. What is it? The detective werewolf one. The one we just had with the Valkyrie before.
You had to say it. Now I can't think of it.
I know. How bad is that? I'll edit this bit out, stick it at the end, and then I'll put the credits.
You mean with Titus and Jenna?
Because Jenna had a lot of my for those of you, I mean, anyone who follows my channel knows I'm not a werewolf person, and there are a lot of my personal lines that I like to say in Jenna, and I love that. I mean,
Jenna wasn't really a werewolf person either.
No, but I definitely see myself in in some of the lines that pop up, and I laugh. And Kristen very kindly, like when Grayson was created, she put all my favorite traits into him. But just before you guys think that's all really, really nice, she then ruined him for me. So, it's a double-edged sword with Kristen pretty much all the time. I mean, he smells like cinnamon because I wanted him to smell like cinnamon, but and now he lost his shine, so that's all right. He's off from Mary.
He's off the market anyway.
Yeah, so that's fine. What else we got here? Oh, this is an easy one. Diana would like to know, is Kristen Painter your real name or nom de plume?
It's my real name.
Yep.
That's me.
That was easy. This is a good one from Ashley. Would your supernatural characters be able to get tattoos, or would they heal too quickly? Now, this is interesting because you don't have tattoos. I don't have tattoos. Tattoos are a huge thing with my muses. Em and Greg have tattoos, and I'm just like, I went back and forth on this. So I'll be very interested to hear what your thoughts are.
I mean, I think it depends on the individual character, creature, and also the world. If you go back to the House of Khmer, I mean, every victim that Mal has ever drained to death
is on him.
The name is on him. The name appears on his body. And
actually, tattoos were a big thing in the Crescent City series. I mean, there was a lot of power. If you guys haven't read that and you're thinking of tattoos, if you read the Crescent City series, there's a whole power base through these tattoos. I mean, that was very unusual.
And if you look at Christabel, I mean, her whole power comes from the gold that's inlaid within her skin.
Yeah,
which is a kind of tattoo. I mean, it's a different sort of thing, but
it's like a tattoo, though. I mean, it's the only way you can really sort of.
So it really just depends on the world, and I think if a character wanted to get a tattoo and there was the issue of them healing too quickly, I'd find a way to write it so that it worked. You know what I mean?
Magic can make anything happen.
It's very true.
Magic. Vicky would like to know, do you do anything to celebrate after finishing a book? Because, you know, some authors have a very, like, you finish a book, send it off, and have a certain thing you do. Anything that you do?
I have a little, I don't know if it's not a celebration, but I do have a little ritual that as soon as I finish one book, I immediately start the next book. So it might even just be getting the document formatted, and it might just be putting in like chapter 1 and writing the first sentence or the first 2 or 3 sentences. And those might not stay, but it's about like, okay, so the seal is broken on the next book. I don't know, but I don't really have maybe early on in the day, I used to do that, celebrate in some way, but I write a lot of books, so.
You do.
I just keep chugging.
Just keep chugging.
Yeah.
There was something. Okay, so Diana says, since you have Halloween and Christmas pretty much locked down, will you perhaps add Valentine's and Cupids or St. Patrick's Day and Leprechaun stores into the Nocturne Falls storylines? I mean, Halloween doesn't really have a store there. I mean, Halloween is just everything there.
Yeah, it's really the whole theme of it's really the town, you know, the whole theme of the town.
And Nocturne Falls does have like the Valentine's Day. They have the Bake Off for Valentine's Day.
I was going to say, there was a Valentine's themed novella within the series. So it does sort of exist already.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, sometimes little holidays like that are really fun to write if there's a particular storyline that you can come up with that sort of works in with that. So
right.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible those can show up.
Never say never.
Yeah.
Never say never. So I'm going to stay with Diana for a minute because this is something I'm quite passionate about. It says, have you ever been approached or would you like to be approached about turning Nocturne Falls into a TV series? Part 2, is there a way for you to pitch it to, say, Netflix or CW? No, there isn't. I can tell you that right now. Pitching a TV series is a pain in the behind and has so many rules and regulations and stupid nonsense.
There was a company that reached out to me once, but they were it wasn't sort of a serious kind of inquiry. They were just sort of gathering a bunch of rights, I guess, and then they were going to, you know, throw things at the wall and see what stuck, kind of a thing.
Right.
I mean, my husband says to me all the time that he thinks that Nocturne Falls would make a great TV show.
I personally could see Nocturne Falls on the Hallmark Channel. I mean, the Hallmark Channel has that good witch. I mean, originally they were movies and they turned it into a series. Personally, I think the movies were better. I think they fit much better in a movie format. I think this would be like the perfect thing. I do think the CW as well, but I think CW tends to edge a little darker. I could see Shadow Bell or First Fangs on there.
I think CW goes younger too.
Yeah, it does and it doesn't. CW is kind of, I don't know. CW is like not one of my favorites, apart from Legends of Tomorrow. I love Legends.
I don't really watch any of the CW, to be honest. It generally, I don't know.
I watch Legends of Tomorrow because it has Constantine in it. So yeah. And I mean, I was a big DC. I am a big DC girl. I'm way more DC than Marvel. And I was actually moaning because CW like ruined. Marvel's doing so good with Disney and all these shows and stuff, and Disney just needs to buy DC and do something good with that. But there you go. But I do know, getting off track again as I start ranting, that you'll see all the time. Anne Rice is a perfect example of why rights options does not mean anything. If you follow her page, the Vampire Chronicles have been optioned so many times, like hundreds of times. They're always being optioned and in development, and they never come to anything. Being optioned means nothing, and you will see that a lot. When getting into there, honestly, I think the best chance Nocturne Falls has of getting on the TV is you need a producer like Alan Ball found the Sookie Stackhouse series while he was sitting in the dentist, and he picked it up and read the book and was like, oh my God, this needs to be a show. That's what we need. So you guys, every time you're out and about, just like plot copies of Vampire's Mail or the Bride, anywhere you go, in the waiting rooms, you know, if you want this on the TV, that's what you have to do.
Yeah, I mean, it could happen, pictures. But you know, it's just one of those things that it's going to be circumstance and right place at the right time. And it's not anything that I can control. If it was,
No.
I'd already have it, in the works. But yeah, it's such a long process, and it's so iffy, and it would be great, but there's no way to really make it happen.
It would be great. I 100% think it would be
great. It would be a lot of fun. And I can tell you that at one time, the same production company that produced the movie Black Swan was actually looking at blood rights and the House of Khmer series, but then they thought it was too similar to something else, or I don't know what. Anyway, so stuff like that happens.
Anything else? What on earth are they saying it's similar to? Idiots! It is not similar to anything. That is so unique. Oh, stupid.
Jack is back.
Hey, Jack, you come back. You come back for a cuddle. Oh, I love this one. Love it. This is from Ashley Brolinsky, and I can so associate to this because I say it to you all the time. Ashley says, your books never fail to make me hungry. Do you base the food in your book on things you've eaten or things you wish you could eat?
They're very rarely based on things I've eaten. It's a lot of times it's like combinations I think would be good. There is one.
The meat on the stick is real, though. The meat on the stick at the North Pole. Because I asked you, I was like, is this real?
Some things are real. Some things are real. There was now I can't remember what book, but there was a cannoli cake in one of the books.
That's in First Bangs. First Bangs has the cannoli cake.
That is a real cake that Publix, which is a sort of a Florida-based grocery store chain, that they do actually make that cannoli cake. I got it one time for my mom and my brother both have birthdays in March, and I got them this cannoli cake for their birthday celebration. And it was unbelievably good, this cake. So every once in a while it's based on a real thing, but a lot of times, and the cinnamon buns, the giant cinnamon buns that they have at Mummy's, those are based, there's a restaurant in San Antonio, Texas. I believe it's called Lulu's. And I think you can look this up online. They make these enormous cinnamon buns. And my husband and I actually went to San Antonio on our honeymoon, and we went to Lulu. They also make a chicken fried steak that like hangs off everything there is huge, right? But it's one of those things that sort of stuck in my mind and ended up showing up at Mummy's. But
I tell you all the time that when I'm reading it, and I think Delaney's treats, the truffles and everything, because I'm a big truffle girl. And when people say, what do these truffles taste like? Kristen, because she's amazing, sends me sometimes Harry and David truffles that I am obsessed with. These are the best truffles I've had. And I've eaten truffles in France and Belgium and all over. And these top everything. You think Godiva is good? No. Harry and David truffles, they are heavenly. And that's how I imagine Delaney's are. That's where I imagine. But
there's really nothing like a good truffle.
No.
That like kind of creamy,
No, nothing like a good truffle. And what's the other thing? Oh, and I want one of those eggs that you smash with a hammer. I want one.
From Shadowvale, the big
from Shadowvale, the big egg. Oh, the big chocolate egg, and you smash it with a hammer, and there's more chocolates inside. Now in England, for the kids, you get Easter. There aren't such a big thing here. I don't know why they're not a big thing here, but you actually get Easter eggs like that. So you get the Easter egg. I mean, obviously it's not posh chocolate. It's usually cheap rubbish chocolate, but you get like that Easter egg, and then inside you have this tiny little bag of candy. But this to me is like, this is the grown-up version. So this is the grown-up version. And I've had people say, wouldn't you be sad to like smash it with a hammer? No, I would not. I mean,
it's all edible, so you're not going to be able to even eat the outside shell if you don't smash it up.
No, smash it and eat it. I mean, take a picture, but then smash it.
Right. You can always get another one.
Right. I know. I never understand that. It's like, oh, you're not going to eat it. No, I'm going to eat it. Of course, I'm going to eat it. I'm going to eat it
what's
immediately.
The point? Yeah.
But Kristen and I, we do set, like I got some little Hershey's Kisses that are a bit different, and they were called Vampire Kisses, and I sent them down to you. We do talk a lot about food and things.
And it's definitely, I have worked in the restaurant industry in different parts of my life. And so, food is one of those really interesting things to me. And
you might not know, but Kristen she actually bakes and makes fabulous desserts.
Yeah, and it's sort of a relaxing kind of thing, and but yeah, I love to. The nice thing about putting that stuff in the books is that it's calorie free. I'm so
not for me because it makes me hungry, and then I'm having to go and get snacks to eat while there are certain things, if I watch certain TV shows or like read your books, and there's so much food talk, it makes me hungry. So I literally have candy that I'm snacking on and whatever as I'm watching this, because your books make me hungry. So it's not, it might be calorie free for you, not calorie free for me.
I would love it. I would love like a vampire's metabolism.
Oh,
you know, and just,
I think that's why I love Belladonna's character so much, and because we're about the same age and we identify with a lot of the same things. And one of the things I loved in the book was the thought that went into the footwear, because that is such a thing that when you're younger, you don't care and you wear what looks good. When you get to our age, it's very much like, okay, how long do I actually have to stand in these?
How many hours will I be in these shoes?
Right. And practicality wise, you have to do the toss up. Do I take another pair of shoes with me? And how is that? And I think so many people can relate to that. And it's just not something that's addressed generally. And I think
when you don't ever have like a 20-something heroine who's worried about her footwear because of, it's just, that's not a thing.
And I love that, because it is such a thing. As I was reading, I was like, oh my God, yeah, I can sew. And I think many people can really identify with that. And she is, if you guys haven't read the first Plank Tale, I'm going to put the link to the first one, which is Sucks to Be You. Is that the first one? Yeah.
Sucks to Be Me.
Sucks to Be Me is the first one. Yeah. And then Suck It Up, Buttercup, and then Sucker Punch, and then the Suck Stop Here, which will be coming out in the summer. But I'm going to put the link to that one in the description for the video, and you should definitely check that out. It's a new range of fiction that Kristen was very involved in the launch last year. It's called Paranormal Women's Fiction. So this is a group of authors that were like, okay, we're sick to death of all the young heroines out there. We're going to take someone who's real in this age. And women's fiction, generally you hear women's fiction and you're just like, ugh, no one wants to read that. But this is different. And this isn't on the list. This is for me. Why did you decide to do this? Because it's awesome.
Well, so I am about to I will be 51 in 9 days. And I think that as you get older, at least for me, I'm like, so this is 51. Like, I'm not, I don't go snap, crackle, and pop when I get up in the morning, and I'm not like, bent over with.
You don't sit on the couch
and booties. Like, I feel very young, and I am a very active person, and I do try to really take care of myself and eat right, work out, and all that kind of stuff, because I sit, to be honest, because I sit all day. So I try to balance out my sedentary job with being active in other ways. But I just felt like, why do we think that 50 is old? This is not old. Like, why are these heroines not getting their page time? There's no reason that at this age you can't be having interesting adventures. And not to say that anybody's really going to get turned into a vampire, but it just adds this whole other dimension to, a character at 50 knows so much more about life than a character at 24 or 25. And there's nothing wrong with those ages. I mean, yeah, you're a little bit dumb at those age. Like, I'm so much smarter now than I was in my 20s. Yeah, it's not book smarts. It's life smarts. It's from experiences and what you've learned and making mistakes and learning from those things. And we just, there were 13 of us that got together. KF Breen and Shannon Meyer kind of spearheaded the whole thing, brought us all together. And most of us are all kind of in that age group anyway. And we just wanted to give these women their due and show them in a real kind of genuine light. And it's not to say that they aren't struggling with hot flashes or issues with their adult children, there's all kinds of new things that come along at this point in life that you would never understand in your 20s. You'd never have to deal with that in your 20s. You could be widowed, you could be divorced, there's all this stuff. So it just was this kind of passion project. And the great thing about it, honestly, is how readers have embraced it and just
because there's nothing like it out there. There was nothing like it out. I mean, you know, I read a ton of stuff. Well, I did. I've kind of got very picky now, but I used to read an absolute ton of. There was nothing like this out there. Women's fiction. If you're reading about characters that were sort of my age, it was either, I don't know, they're usually getting divorced and sad with life and moving off to a beach, or I don't know, it's just all very boring. And it's like, this is not what life is like. I mean,
well, a lot of times you think women's fiction and you think like Jodi Picoult, which, I mean, that's fine if you like those kind of books, but we are talking about like life empowering books.
Yes. And I mean, especially for someone like me, and I mean, there's a lot of other people like me. I mean, Krista, who runs the CBAD group, she's in the same age group. But we're just sort of finding ourselves at this point. You know, all of a sudden, our careers and things we're moving forward is a whole new chapter in life. Things are really just sort of starting for us. And on a piece of paper, we're like edging to the, you know, you should be ticking the almost at retirement box. I mean, Em and I watched a movie. Well, Greg and Em and I watched a movie last night, and somebody on there was 56. And one of the other characters was like, oh, so you're like going to retire then? It's like, no, what? And that is the perception. It's like younger.
Yes.
Generally, if you know the 20s and everything, they see it, and there really isn't that much difference. It's like we're just the same, only with life experience.
Yeah, I read something not too long ago. I can't remember the name of the book, and I wouldn't mention it anyway. But they had a 60-something-year-old character, and she was looking at like retirement living communities.
Yeah.
And at 60, like, which is not to say not everybody ages the same way. I understand that. But I look at my mom and dad, my mom especially, who is closer to 80 than she is to 70. But you never know it. She is so active and she takes care of herself. And I look at her and you can't tell me that she's old, because she's not. You know, it's there's so much of it is up here.
Yeah.
And if you perceive yourself as old, then I think you're going to feel old. But these are women, these characters in these books that are just, they are like you said, they're finding themselves. Mm-hmm. I know more about who I am right now at this age than I did when I was 30 or 20 or 40 or what. It's almost like you suddenly understand who you are as a person, and you can embrace that, and you've been alive long enough to sort of go, I'm not going to listen to any more arguments. This is who I am.
And I think that's the biggest thing. You get to a point where you've been through all the negativity, you've been through everything else, and you can just be like, you know what? I don't care what you say. I don't care that you're going to say, oh, you shouldn't walk around with cat ears on your head, or wear your crazy makeup, or you shouldn't go out like. It's like, you know what? I will do what I want, because I could get hit by a bus tomorrow. So
you get very comfortable in your skin in a way that and I'm not saying that this has anything to do with the way you perceive yourself physically. You just become very centered in who you are. You know who you are. You know what you're willing to put up with and what you're not. And that is absolutely who Belladonna is in these books. She has been through some crap and she's survived it, and she's never going through that again. And it just sort of, it informs who she is as a heroine. And I love writing her because she's not really a person who second guesses. She might really struggle sometimes to come to a decision, but that's because she's so concerned with how it's going to affect everybody else around her, because she is a mom and she does sort of perceive things that way. But once a decision is made, get behind her, because she's moving forward. And I love writing that kind of character. I really do. And I love that, like I said, that readers have really embraced it and understood it and taken these books, you know, into their hearts as like, this is what we have been waiting for. And I think it was a long time overdue.
I think so too. And I think part of that is that it's not out there. So it's kind of daunting. It's like, okay, we're going to put this out there. Amazon doesn't really have a proper place to list it, or they didn't have a proper place to list it. I mean, where do you list it? It doesn't really fit into your general supernatural stuff. It doesn't really fit into general paranormal. It doesn't fit into women's fiction. So you're really taking a risk, because as great as it is to write something that doesn't tick boxes, when you're trying to put it out there, especially if you're trying to put it out there as you ladies did, you know, you're not coming from one of the big four, well, it used to be big five, but with big four publishers with all that money behind them.
Yeah.
Like, you're doing this, and the system isn't really set up to help that. But the series is so good that it's just done it on its own. It's just like, we're going. Because
yeah, and I would encourage any of Mel's musers that are in that age range that have always wanted to read an older heroine who isn't, using a walker and just basically trying to get to her arthritis medicine. These are the books for you. These paranormal women's fiction, that you will enjoy them greatly.
And if you want recommendations, you guys, hit me up. There's quite a few reviews on the website. My top pick will always be Kristen's one because hers are the best, and I'm not biased even a little tiny bit. Objectively speaking, they are the best. You guys know me. I won't give you a 5-star review if you don't deserve it. I will tell you what's not good. And some of the paranormal fiction were not for me, but you can judge based on the stories and that. But yeah, First Fangs Club, you should pick up book 1 now and read it. I mean, I tell you guys to do it all the time. I don't know why you haven't done it yet. If you haven't done it yet, get on it. Let's go.
Now is the time to do it too, because the first 3 books are out and the 4th one will be out probably in August. So
it will be August.
All caught up and be ready to roll with the 4th book when it
will definitely be August.
Yeah,
we're on track for August. We're good.
Yeah, yes, we will make.
We are on track.
I don't know what the date will be yet, but it'll be August.
It'll be August. Okay, something a little different. Vicky says, if you could be stuck on an island and could only pick one, would you pick cats or books?
I would pick books because I'd be too worried about taking care of the cats.
I mean, you got to try and worry about feeding them, and what if they? I mean, if you had Jet there, Jet would probably decide he needs to go for a swim. It'd be a nightmare.
Who knows with Jet? Although Jack would. I'm trying to think which one of our cats would be the best hunter that might actually bring some dinner home. I don't know. They're all.
I think they'd probably eat the dinner.
Yeah, before.
I feel like if they were willing to hunt the dinner, they would probably eat the dinner before you.
They'd be like, "Here, Mom. Here's a lizard head. That's all we had left."
Yeah, that is exactly how I envision it. No, that would not be good. No. So Marie Bouvier-Noman says, Kristen, who is your favorite character from all of your books? That's see, I have a favorite character. Do you have a favorite character?
I mean, I'd have to say I don't really have a favorite. I generally like who I'm writing at the moment. It's like they're my favorite because that's the story I'm in and that's where my head's at. But there have been characters that have been more enjoyable for me to write, and I have to. It goes back to the kind of grumpy, surly hero, like Mal and Hank and Sebastian. I like those kind of. I don't know what it is about writing those kind of guys, but I just really enjoy that. I think I like a guy who is, hard on the outside, but sort of secretly gooey. But I do really enjoy writing that kind of, that's probably my favorite type of character to write. And I guess, like I said, if I had to pick one, it would probably be Mal because he was sort of my,
he's like your original.
Yeah, like my friend. Actually, if we go really far back, one of my very favorite first characters was a dark elf by the name of Erdemus, who shows up in the book Heart of Fire. And this is a fantasy romance that is actually the first book I ever wrote to completion. And guys, you can get that Heart of Fire. I'll put a link for it in the description to the video. You can get it. It's a very good book. I like that one. Love affair with the sort of that dark, grumpy, doesn't talk a lot. Yeah, that's a good one. I like that one. Okay, Marcy has a whole bunch of little quickie questions, so I'm going to shoot through those. Okay. What inspired your love of Halloween? I mean, who doesn't like to dress up and get candy? Right. Exactly. Candy. Yeah, candy. Do you see yourself adding to your kitty family? I would say not intentionally, but I would never rule it out if someone happened to turn up on your doorstep or on an island in the middle of the road. Yeah, in all honesty, I am constantly having to tell my husband, do not adopt that cat. We cannot adopt another cat. But he rescued a cat very recently. Well, it was fairly recently. That wasn't it in an island in the middle of the road or something? And he bought that's Daffodil. She was crossing 4 lanes of awful traffic, and we I was driving, I pulled over, and my mom was with us, and he jumped out of the car and scooped her up. And yeah, I mean, so it does happen, but yeah, 12 is a lot. Jack is laying right next to me here, licking himself. That's nice. I can watch
So
him.
like I said, not intentionally, but
No.
never say never.
Yeah.
Will we see more Sugar and Spider? I mean, if we see
possible.
more Frost and Crow, then they will be there.
Yeah.
See, I can answer. This is fun. I can answer these questions. I'll just answer them all for you.
There you go.
What else we got? Will you add Meow merch to your line?
There is a Shadow Veil cup that has a Meow on it right now. I thought there was something else, but now I'm not sure. But if there's something specific that anybody ever really wants, I am happy to put it on my list of things to do and get something created. I just have to go through and, sort of mock up whatever it is. If it's a t-shirt or like I said, there is a cup. I'm trying to think what else people might really be interested in.
I think they want a Meow toy is what I think they want. And that's how I'm interpreting it, but that might just be because I want a Meow toy. So that might not actually be Marcy's question, but that's a little bit more complicated. But that's how I'm envisioning it, like a Meow to just sit on.
That would be, what we need somebody who's really good at crocheting to come up with a pattern.
Jenny Bynum, I'm going to call you out and I'm going to tag you in it. Jenny Bynum is a rock star. I'm going to see maybe she could.
Because it would basically be a cat with bat wings. So it wouldn't be like too difficult to figure out. I mean, I'm not a crocheter, but.
And Lauren Dixon, I'm going to call you out too. I'm going to call two of you out.
People that crochet, that feels like something that they could, and if somebody comes up with a pattern and they'd be willing to, then they could share it in the group.
There you go. And the last one of her questions is, what kind of cat food is most popular in your house?
Okay, so Jack, who is the big orange cat that you saw earlier, he actually there is a particular kind of cat food that we cannot run out of, because if he doesn't get it, he will bite you, and he does quite frequently. It's not a mean bite. It's a bite of encouragement.
Let's go.
Yeah,
give me my food.
And that is Fancy Feast, and it is a Green Label. It's chunky chicken, and that is actually the cat food that inspired Chicken Party, because Jack has to have, that is his chicken party. Is the chunky chicken, Fancy Feast chunky chicken. And there was actually there was a time when, for whatever reason, I don't know if it was like the whole pandemic thing, but chunky chicken suddenly was out of stock everywhere. And I said to my husband, I don't know what we're going to do. We're going to be in serious trouble, because there's maybe one or two other foods that you could sort of placate him with, but eventually if he doesn't get his chunky chicken, then he has like a meltdown. So I thought for a while there that we were going to be in serious trouble, but I was able to find enough to sort of ration it out until it came back in stock. But that is absolutely hands down his favorite. We do feed a lot of Fancy Feast. They put some kind of cat crack in there. So that Fancy Feast is like our, and I've tried like the really good high-end brand. And
cats like what they like. They are super fussy.
Oh my word, so fussy. I just put out a bowl of fresh tuna. My dad went deep sea fishing and came back with tuna, and I made them up like a tuna steak, and fresh tuna. And they were all like, "Yeah, there's no gravy on that."
That's exactly what my cats are like. It's like, what kind of cat does not want tuna? My cat won't. We have two cats, and they won't eat any. If we get the little cans of food, they won't eat anything with any kind of fish. They won't eat any kind of fresh fish. They are absolutely averse to all fish, even tuna, whatever. They literally turn their nose up at it. Like, what is this?
They're so particular. Our cats are so spoiled too. I mean,
well, So, couple more questions for the Muses, and then we will wrap this up. Susan would like to know, do you write to music, or do you need silence when you write?
I either really like silence, or I will listen to rain sounds, sort of like nature. Not like birds and crickets. I just like that kind of white noise of rain. I have it's not an app, it's a website that I go to. I think it's called Soft Murmur or something like that. And it's got, you can program it to have like a lot of thunder, a little, I don't know, a little thunder, you know, but generally it's just a rain sound. Or I will listen to, I don't know if you've ever seen these on YouTube. They have these like 10-hour long.
Yeah. Do you know that literally just popped up on mine the other day? I said, Greg, look, there's a 10-hour video with just rain and thunder.
And you can find these ones, they call it like study music
Yeah.
or concentration music or music to work to or something like that. And sometimes I'll put one of those on, but a lot of times it depends on the scene I'm working on too. Like if I'm doing something that's like darker or maybe a fight scene or something that's going to have some, you know, some action. I don't know. I like the rain for that. It kind of puts me in that sort of headspace for darker and gloomier. But it's those, I can't listen to anything with words because then I'll just want to sing along and I will not pay attention to what I'm doing.
See, I'm the same way when I'm doing stuff. It's like, I never understand how authors, I know a lot of authors do have music and they have playlists and everything. And I'd be like, I end up typing the words as I was singing them. And I'd be like, oh no, that's the song lyrics.
Well, and plus sometimes I do dictation. So
yeah, that would not be good.
I can't have any, no, when I'm doing dictation, I can't have anything going on.
You'd go back and there'd just be like a whole chorus from, you know, Frankie Goes to Hollywood or something in there. Is there any world that you would love to write a story in beside your own world?
If I could do it without all the work that would be involved, I mean, I might maybe possibly write like in the Star Trek universe or I don't know. I mean, probably not, only because it seems like it would be so much work to really familiarize myself with the rules and regulations of that world. And plus I have so many worlds in my head.
You already do. You have so many worlds of your own. It's like you probably don't have room in your head for a whole other world to be going in there.
So much that I can only hold so much at one time.
Somebody did ask if there are any plans. I can't find it. I know I saw it. Somebody wanted to know if you are likely to be, I can't find it, but I know it's on there. If you're likely to be writing a new series, like as in new, I would say probably not at the moment. We have so many series.
There's so much stuff going on right now. And I'm actually trying, I'm not that I'm trying to cut back, but I am trying to find more balance in my life.
Yeah.
So, but that isn't to say that a new series might not crop up in a year or two. I mean, I really love the world building and creating, you know, that new play. That's such a fun thing for me to do. But right now I'm pretty happy with what's going on. And I feel like there's a lot more. People ask me all the time, will there be more Nocturne Falls? And there will be, I mean, I'll probably go to my grave writing a Nocturne Falls book. I don't really see, there's no, like some people say, oh, I'll be done at book 15 or I'll be done. And honestly, as long as readers still want them and still buy them, and it makes financial sense for me to keep writing. I mean, I'm not going to write books that nobody buys, but I have no problem to keep writing those books. There are so many more stories to be told and more characters. And yeah, so
I think the nice thing with Nocturne Falls is you have, like, each book you get, usually, I mean, for the most part, sometimes you have two characters that you already know, like with Werewolf Dates the Deputy, but more often than not, you get a character that you've met and a new character that's coming to town. So you have a lot of chance to sort of throw in new things. Sometimes you get a new paranormal creature, sometimes it's just a new person, but then you also get the characters that you've sort of met and known. I mean, sometimes you see them in passing, sometimes they just get mentioned. But I will say one of the things that you do so well is even your, I call them minor characters, but often they go on to become major characters, is they are so real and so fully envisioned that when they then get their own story, you already feel that you know them. Like in The Siren Saves the Billionaire. I mean, we all felt that we'd already met and it sort of knew, and it was like, okay, when is Andrea going to, they've got Andrea's book. We'd already met her back where she put in Roxy's fish tank, and then, you know, she's popped up occasionally going to the club and doing her party stuff. And so she's been there and she's been around in the world for a long time. And then we learned, you know, she really felt very real.
I'm getting a lot of requests now for Maddie and Aaron's book, because they sort of, and there's, I'm not saying that's who's coming up next. I don't know yet. I'll know when that story comes to me. It feels like it's the next right thing to write. But yeah, there will be plenty more Nocturne Falls books. There's no end in sight as far as I'm concerned right now. So
love it. And I'm gonna wrap up with this one because it's kind of unusual. It's kind of stupid, actually. When creating the book cover for House of the Rising Sun, did you use Melanie as your muse? That was from Gladys, and it's funny because when this cover popped up, it was like, okay, that does kind of look like me.
That's really interesting because it does kind of look like you.
Especially back then when I had the really like the red and
yes, yeah. But I have, so both of the series that I wrote for Orbit, I had zero control over those covers. I had, so for the first for the House of Khmer, those covers were done by an artist. I think I want to say he's in Portugal by the name of Necro, and he is just an outstanding artist. He's kind of a photo manipulator. But the second set of covers, those were all hand drawn, hand painted, and the woman's name has gone right out of my head. But it's a female artist from.
I will look it up and I'll pop it up on the thing when I edit.
And I didn't have any. I mean, I sort of had input as far as like, here's a general brief of what the book is about, and here's some elements that maybe if you could work them in, it would make sense for the cover. But I had nothing to do with those. Unfortunately, I think both of them are beautiful. Both series are really beautiful, but I didn't have anything to do with that. So,
and I think that is a crazy enough place that we're going to leave it there. So I'm going to do the little wrap-up-y bit. Huge thank you to Kristen for sitting and chatting with me today and answering all the Muser questions. It's been so much fun. I can't believe it took us this long to get on a call and chit chat. For those of you that are watching, please make sure you do all the fun YouTube things. If you stuck around this long, like, comment, and of course, subscribe. Check the video description. There will be a ton of links in there. If you want to check out Kristen over on Facebook, her Facebook page will be there. We have a really awesome reader group where always fun things going on in there. So you definitely join that. I will put links to the first books in all of the series that we talked about today. And remember, you can get the Vampires Mail Order Bride, which is book 1 in the Nocturne Fall series, for free right now. So you definitely want to get that. And you should get the other ones too because they're awesome. But that's just, no, it's not even my bias. That is a fact. They are awesome books. If you think I look like someone who'd be fun to hang out with, you would be 100% correct. You should join me every Sunday at noon Eastern time on my Facebook page. I'm live with my husband, Greg. It is insane. It is fun. We have giveaways. You should absolutely be there. All the cool people are there. And if you're not there, well, then, yeah, you're probably somewhere else. And finally, make sure you are clicking that little notification bell so you never miss when I have a video up. Only thing you can count on for 2021 are Mail Call Mondays, Forgotten Feature Fridays, Zoom interviews on Wednesday when I have them available, and of course, weird and random other videos as they pop into my head or by request. So if there's something you want to see, let me know. And with that, I hope to see you next time. Bye.
And have you watched The Detectorist yet?
I've not watched that yet, but it is on the list. It is on the list to watch. We're going to watch that.
All I'm going to say is the magpie on the cover of the new book would make sense to you if you had watched The Detectorist.
I just messaged you that when you sent me the thing. I was like, I'm really intrigued by the magpie. Like the bird was really intriguing me, and no one knows what we're talking about because no one's seen this cover. But
I got such a good idea for that book when I watched. I mean, this is one of the things about being a writer. You never know where inspiration is going to come from. And there was a moment in The Detectorist that sort of struck like these internal chords with me. And I thought, that is going in a book. I am putting that in a book and it's going in this book. And that's being bumped right up the list then.
I keep saying to Greg about it. And he's like, you're not really going to watch a show about metal detectors. I was like, the weird and random things that we watch. And he used to go metal detecting. Kristen, he used to go metal. He used to drag me out while he had the bag and we'd go out.
So much more than that, I promise you. You'll watch the first episode or two and you'll be like, I don't know. And then by the fourth one, you'll be like,
right.
Can we watch all of this tonight? How much time do I have? Yeah.
We do. I mean, we watch so many weird and random things. I mean, our list of weird and random TV shows is so bizarre. Some of the stuff we watch is absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean,
so we are the people.
We are the people that watched I can't even remember what it was called, but it was basically a reality show where they taught people how to become knights for like medieval knights, and it was a jousting competition. It was so good. I loved that. It only lasted one season.
I like things that have a little bit of a not educational, but sort of like it's not just sort of reality TV for the sake of people like wearing skimpy outfits and sleeping with everybody, like something like that. A little bit of where the detectorist has that element of, they're out there trying to find pieces of history.
Yeah.
But there's so much more to it than that. It really, it's just one of those shows you just have. I mean, it won like a couple of BAFTAs.
Oh, I'm against the BAFTAs at the moment, so I'm anti-BAFTAs. They did not nominate David Tennant for a BAFTA. I'm so mad about that. David Tennant in 2020, who did Deadwater Fell, absolutely amazing drama mystery. If you haven't watched that, it's very dark and very twisted. I couldn't figure it out. I mean, I can usually get they kept that really twisty. It was a bit like Broadchurch twisty. Very dark, very, very good.
Which I loved him in Broadchurch.
Right. So this was that kind of role, only he wasn't the detective. He was one of the suspects. It was all a bit weird. So that was that, which I think was a 4-part series. He released Staged, which was the Hulu show with Michael Sheen, and they had that going through the whole pandemic, and there was that. And then he did Des, which was the sort of biopic about the serial killer from England. And he embodied the character so much that one of the original detectives said it was really quite frightening to watch him on screen because it was so much like seeing the other one. So all of this, and he didn't even get a nod, didn't even get a nomination at the BAFTAs. They completely, they don't like him. He's never had a BAFTA. All the things David Tennant's done, never had a BAFTA. So that's kind of
surprising.
It's because he's Scottish.
Oh.
And even though it's Britain, so technically it's not really. It should be called I don't know how you'd say it with England, YAFTAs. The YAFTAs. It shouldn't be called the BAFTAs at all because they basically don't nominate anyone who's not from England.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so there's my little soapbox. I love David Tennant though, so I was really miffed about that. So you watch a lot of English TV. What TV are you watching right now? Because I know we share a lot of shows.
I just started a new show last night that I'm a little on the fence about it, but I'm definitely leaning more towards being intrigued and liking it. And it's, wait, what am I watching it on? BritBox or Acorn? I think I'm watching it on those two channels to me are very interchangeable. So I don't always remember which one I'm watching.
They are. And what's really annoying is I have Acorn and you go into it and it shows you adverts for BritBox shows.
Well, I think this is a BritBox one.
Okay.
And it's called Keeping Faith.
Oh, that's an Acorn show. I just started that. I just watched the first episode of that.
I just watched the first, and I get through. I don't think I got all the way through the second episode last night. I just started it last night. Where her husband leaves to go to work and doesn't show. I just started that.
I just started that. I only watched one episode of it.
That's so we're pretty much right neck and neck with that one. I'm dying to know what happened to him. And
so they just had season 3 in England and they just uploaded season 3, which is why it's popping up on everyone's thing. My mum said it was really good. So we've got 3 seasons. So my mum was loving it. She's like, you have to check this out.
What are you having for lunch?
I have no idea. I want to make some sausage rolls. All I've been wanting to eat lately is sausage rolls, but there's such a pain.
You just made those the other day.
I did, but I ate all of those. I made 36 and I ate them all.
I was just going to ask you how many so is like one a meal or do you eat like 3 or 4 or what's the
when I make them it's like one tube of the sausage meat makes 16 and they're like that big.
Oh,
and they're not really meals, they're more like little snack things. I will eat 4 or 5 in a go, and so if I only make 16 they only last me a couple of days because the trouble is once I know they're there and I don't heat them up or anything, I just have to open the fridge and get one. So they don't last very long.
Almost sound like an hors d'oeuvre.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, in England, if you go they have a shop called Greg's. It used to be called Boquette's. They have the best hot sausage rolls. Like it's really, really flaky pastry. And they're like this big. And that would be like lunch. You'd have one of those for lunch. Mine are in England, we call them cocktail things, and you'd have like a whole big thing of them at parties, kids parties or grown-up parties or weddings or like in a buffet type situation.
So do you make your own pastry or
Hell no.
Okay, so what are you using, like biscuit?
I did puff pastry.
Puff pastry. Okay. I was thinking like the tube of biscuits that you have to whack on the counter and then they like explode.
We do have those, but yeah, that'd be the wrong kind. It has to be puff pastry, which is funny because everything over here uses puff pastry for desserts. They don't really use it for savory things, and
not as much unless it's like there are some salmon dishes that are
like salmon, like the en croûte type things.
Yeah.
But when I went looking for it, the first time I went looking for it at the store, I couldn't find it because I wasn't looking for pictures of like apple turnovers and that.
It was next to the Cool Whip, probably.
It was right next to the Cool Whip and the pie bases. So I know that now, but I don't know.
My husband's favorite thing to do is to he latches on to a new word, and his current word is dodgy.
Dodgy. Oh, I speak dodgy. I love that.
And he wants to he's trying to work that into his
every sentence.
Into his daily vocabulary more frequently.
But I do find that there are words. My word at the moment is mankiest, that I've just mankiest, because I did an interview. I did a vampire chat with Susan, and it was me, Greg, and Susan, and we were talking. I was drinking Guinness. I was drinking that coffee Guinness, and Susan was like, Greg's like, this is disgusting. It smells disgusting, and it's all bitter and it's gross. And Susan's like, oh, you should follow this page on Instagram. And it's all like them posting the mankiest Guinness posts and whatever. So, oh my God, I haven't heard mankiest in forever. So that's my word of the month.
That's so funny. Our other favorite thing is when they say somebody's done a runner.
Done a runner? Why is that not a thing here?
I don't know, but it just cracks us up. Oh, they've done a runner. We also decided that because we watch these mysteries and there's a lot of, police and crime and stuff like that. We also decided that if we were ever going to turn it into a drinking game, that the word would be nicked.
Nicked, you're nicked.
You're going to the nick. He was in the nick.
You're nicked.
Like, it just, yeah. My husband and I are still watching Jonathan Creek. We watch that together.
Yay! We
love a good mystery. We have watched Pie in the Sky. We have watched the Hetty Wainthropp mysteries. We have watched, what is that? Really, the Queens of Mystery, which is, honestly, it's a crime that they did not make more of that show. It's got that like Pushing Daisies vibe, that with the little narrator and the side story. And anyway, I love it. And The Coroner, which I told you about, which is that's another show that should have been like that should have been 15 seasons. It's unbelievable that was 3 seasons and they left it on a cliffhanger. It makes me want to kill everyone involved. That should have been much longer.
But American land of convenience food does not have frozen sausage. We buy in England. We buy little frozen sausage rolls. They're in a bag. You get like 20 or 30 in a bag. Just throw them in the oven. Why does America not have these? It would make my life so much easier.
I bet if you went to the right shop, so there's a lot of British expats in Florida.
And yes, I remember when we were down there, they had a lot more because you could get pork pies down there. Oh,
we have some shops that are specifically, they have all kinds of British stuff. I know this because when I was searching for double cream, I found a couple of, which I still haven't actually gotten my hands on, but I think it probably has a lot to do with the demographics of where
and the fact that no one in their right mind would move from England to Rochester, New York. I remember being down in Florida and I remember finding it because they had like pork pies and they had the Luxade, and I mean I order some of my stuff online, like I order Ribena online, and Vicky sends me candy from Canada and what have you, but it's the meat type things, because obviously although you can get, it's so ridiculously expensive to get that sort of stuff, it's just not worth it, especially now. I can make them. I'm not completely useless, but it's like catch 22, because then I make them and then I eat them and then I have to make more and then I just eat more, and they're not exactly low calorie.
Maybe you should make bigger ones.
I tried that and then I still eat the same amount. It's like when you buy smaller mini versions of the ice creams. Greg said the other day, he's like, oh, look, they have those little mini Dove bars. I was like, yeah, but I'd have to eat the whole pack to make it equivalent to.
That's not really working out then.
No, it doesn't work then. So we just watched The Circle, which I know would not be something you watch. It's a reality show on Netflix, which is basically set where they do this competition, and they're basically in Facebook, for want of a better word. They can't actually see each other. They can decide to play as a catfish. For whatever reason, in this second season, they had Chloe, who's from Essex. And oh, she's really loud. And the first couple of episodes, I was like, oh my God, can't be doing with her. What an Essex girl. And I loved her by the end of it because she's kind of loud like me. But she's from Essex. Greg thought she sounded just like me. I'm like, I do not sound like an Essex girl. There was a riddle on the TV that she had to answer. And I gave my answer, which was the correct answer. And then Chloe gave her answer that was wrong. And Greg's like, oh, well done. I was like, that sounded really sarcastic. You know, I got it right. She's like, you got it wrong. And then was like, that was Chloe. I was like, you can't possibly really think that I sound like Chloe from Essex.
Wow.
I was like, no, I do not.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's other series. And I also watch Rosemary and Thyme sometimes when I'm in the mood for something a little like, we love a good British mystery. And we watch all the Agatha Christie movies that they make, you know, all of the, those are really good. So that's kind of that's our comfort TV. It's a good British
see, we have that. We have like Murdoch Mysteries. Murdoch Mysteries is very much our.
But that's Canadian.
It is Canadian, yeah. But
and
my dad
I do watch that sometimes. So I also just watched, and this is not really a mystery, but have you ever seen The Thin Blue Line with Rowan Atkinson?
Yes. I used to love that.
Oh my
love
word,
Rowan
that
Atkinson.
show cracks. First of all, I love Mr. Bean. I mean, I love Rowan Atkinson, but there's just that he can do some things with his face, like just his expressions and his.
I love Mr. Bean. It's such a stupid thing, and his little dance, the Mr. Bean dance. I make Greg do. Greg's done the Mr. Bean dance before because it cracks me up. But have you ever seen Blackadder?
I know what it is. I haven't really seen it.
Because Rowan Atkinson is in that, and he plays Baldric. And in season 1, the whole point is does he play Baldric? No, he doesn't play Baldric. No, maybe I'm mixing up. So anyway, the whole thing changes, and like in season 1 the character's really sort of like smart and everything, and then in the next season he's dumb in the first one and crazy. I've just got that all mixed up, but yeah, you should check that out.
Isn't Hugh Laurie in that too?
Yes.
Okay.
And each season goes through like a different period in history, but don't watch the last one. Don't watch the last season with the soldiers, because that was the final one ever, and I bawled my eyes out at the end of that. I was like, this is meant to be a funny show. I don't want to be sitting here bawling my eye. It was so sad. Wow,
I don't like sad.
No, the thing is, this whole show was comedy and funny. I mean, you have people dying occasionally, like history dying, because obviously they did a bit where it was all sort of like the French Revolution and, you know, different bits in history.
Yeah.
And then this one was the Second World War, and it's like, this probably isn't going to go down too well. But then it gets to the end, and it's really sad. And it was the last one ever, and it's really emotional. I mean, maybe it's more emotional to me because I'm Brit, and obviously I have family members that were sort of involved in that. But I was just like, oh, this is not how this show should end. Like, what is this? And this was the last one. It was not fun. So don't watch the last. If you do watch it all, but don't watch the last season.
I'll have to check that out next time.
So there you go. That's a whole lot of blurb to get through. Ugh.
Yes, that is.
Yeah. Well, when you said it 7 million times, it just
I'm sure.
Greg's like, you just go into auto.